Welcome back to another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. Ever since it launched back in open access beta in 2017, believe it or not, GeForce Now, the cloud gaming streaming service, has been an interesting anomaly in the gaming landscape. Originally, it was designed to be some kind of competitor to Amazon's failed Luna streaming service, which was competition for Google's failed Stadia streaming service. GeForce Now managed to gracefully transition into a streaming option that allows users to play games they already own on a variety of services like Steam, the Epic Game Store, Ubisoft Connect, and Battle.net streamed onto their desktop. It's also nice, like if you have I have a PC gaming setup, and I have a Mac laptop, which means I cannot play any of my games on my Mac laptop. In theory, this should separate my work from my play, but I use GeForce Now. Also, my work is kind of my play, so it's all messy. Let's not get into it. Anyway, in case you didn't know, hi folks, it's Falcon. We're talking about GeForce Now. That should be obvious, but for people who fall into the very specific use case of individuals who buy games on PC but don't have a dedicated gaming PC, GeForce Now has been a little inconsistent, and it's also highly dependent on your internet situation, but I'll say that unfortunately hasn't necessarily changed. I'll get it out of the way. If you want to get anything out of GeForce Now, you need a really fast internet connection and an unlimited data plan, because otherwise it's going to run like garbage and suck up pretty much all of your bandwidth immediately. I got a sweet unlimited fiber connection where I live, so any praise that I heap upon GeForce Now, understand it's filtered through that, because in all seriousness, by default, this thing uses between 4 gigabytes and 16 gigabytes per hour, depending on the quality of the stream. So in all seriousness, unlimited access is a must. High bandwidth is a must. Fiber internet is a relatively recent development in my own life, though, and if I were judging GeForce Now on the standards of 2020 and what I had then, which was not great, it would be essentially worthless for both myself and therefore for the vast majority of people in the United States and most other countries, honestly. It's 2025, though, and internet service in a lot of regions in the United States, it's improved significantly in a fairly short period of time. Whether you want to credit COVID or talk about it as the unfortunate hurdle we had to jump to get much better internet, I think that's pretty much why. And that big improvement on internet service has made GeForce Now a actually accessible product. Like it's in theory useful for more than a tiny niche of people at this point, but is it worth getting? Does it actually work as intended? I mean, we've been complaining about streaming games for years now, and before earlier this year, I was more than willing to pile on some hate on GeForce Now, but I've spent time with it this year, and obviously, in particularly in the last short stretch of time for this review, as have the others who are involved in these reviews, and I think all of us have to say performance and playability have seen a drastic improvement. Once again, I will say I have a very good, ideal internet setup for this type of thing. Again, I have fiber internet, I have unlimited data, the Ethernet cable is connected directly into the PC I'm using for this review, and my Wi-Fi is great, so pretty much anywhere in my house this works pretty well. In a worse environment, the quality can and will drop really dramatically, but that doesn't make the service useless depending on the types of games you're playing. So there's a lot of qualifiers and caveats to get into, but if you've got a great connection and own the games that are actually available on the service and get the ultimate subscription, which is $20 a month or $200 a year, then the games are playable. And not like in a wishy-washy way. I'm not saying they're playable like they're just playable or they're borderline unplayable. They straight up work like you want them to, at least most. I always used to feel that the input lag was too much for these types of streaming game services. But while that's not completely eliminated, the laws of physics still do apply here. The improvements are, insane. Games like Nine Souls actually playable, which is impressive given how reliant on precise timing that game is. Something like Arkham Knight felt almost indistinguishable from playing it locally. There are moments I was starting to forget I was playing a game that was being streamed from a data center halfway across the country. That's an incredible achievement. to get to a point where streaming games is actually kind of feasible, not just a total pipe dream, that's really, really impressive. And it actually works most of the time. There are issues I'll get into later, but to my endless surprise, GeForce Now actually works. And I am inclined to give it a recommendation based purely on the quality of the gameplay I experienced. Again, there are problems. There's not even rare problems. The more I looked into the nooks and crannies of the service, the more I found things that don't quite work as intended, or are awkward, or even crappy from a consumer perspective. So I do have to say I have mixed impressions of the service overall. Let's start with the pricing model. GeForce Now offers 3 different subscription tiers. There's free, which is, it's garbage. I'll get more into that later. There's performance, which is $10 a month or $100 a year. Also, it's not really worth it because the quality of the GPUs you have access to and the additional wait times, it's not great. And finally, there's Ultimate, which is their best offer, even though the asking price is a pretty steep $20 a month or $200 a year. For that price, you get quote-unquote access to over 4,000 games, which is a little misleading because there are games you do have to own. You can't just play them unless they're like free-to-play games, then I guess you can. You get up to 8 hours a day streaming, up to 4K resolution and 240 FPS, depending on the game. Most games are using 4080s, but NVIDIA is currently adding 5080s to their servers and slowly making them available to users. It's pretty vague which games are using 5080s, and when you actually get access to them, it appears that they're offered on a first-come, first-served basis. So if you're playing a game that offers the newer GPUs, it's not always a guarantee you're going to be using one. But at this point, I want to make it just very, very clear, abundantly clear, 100% clear, that what we're talking about is, what it is, in case you're scratching your head still. They offer the ability to stream games onto your PC from a device from a remote server. So when you're playing a game on Now, a virtual desktop gets loaded up in a server and streamed to you. Your inputs are transmitted from your local PC to that server, which takes that data, applies to the game, getting broadcast remotely, and you're playing a game. That's what's going on. The point here is it lets people play games that wouldn't normally be available on their platform, or maybe their local PC doesn't have the specs to run it. Those are probably the primary use cases for a service like this. Like I said, my Mac laptop is a good candidate. Some examples where GeForce Now might also be good is tablets or mobile handhelds that wouldn't run them. Maybe a mini PC connected to your TV. Like I said, Mac. There is Windows emulation on Macs. It's improved dramatically, but it's not perfect. And this is, for games that work, really a good alternative in all seriousness. The Ultimate tier, anyway. Everything I played that started up, it was quick, played very good. It's a little weird how the service works because it's literally starting up a virtual environment, opening up Steam. So a lot of the time when you're launching a game, you'll have to select the game on GeForce Now. It'll open up on Steam and you have to select the game again to actually play it. It's odd. If it has a required update, you may have to restart it again after that. It's not as simple to start up and get things playing as on a console. This is still the realm of PC gaming, so there's more fiddle. Sometimes it doesn't work at all, like in the case of Call of Duty, which just would not work for me. For some reason, trying to sign into battle.net just did not work despite having the right password. And when the game did start, it would either hang endlessly or crash after attempting to load a game mode. Other games worked perfectly fine. Dying Light, The Beast, Mafia, The Old Country ran just about perfect. If there were issues, these were issues that are built into the game, like Unreal Engine stuttering on occasion. Sometimes the in-game settings are less than ideal for NVIDIA's hardware, but they do let you mess around with the in-game graphic options, so it's persistent and it carries over between gaming sessions. That's good, in my opinion. For the most part, I found games that require precision aiming to be the ones that were the hardest to play, but I'm kind of not the best at those anyway. But still, input lag is a real annoyance at times. You'd think precision platforming games would be the biggest issue on the series, but I found those actually worked really well, particularly side-scrollers. Anything that required the use of both sticks would feel a little sluggish, though. Just to make sure that I wasn't hallucinating or some kind of bias was just playing out, I played some of them locally and over the cloud, and the input issues, they're noticeable on GeForce Now. They're not unplayable. You could do fine in any of these games if they're working, of course, at this level of responsiveness. That doesn't mean you're going to love it. It's like playing a shooter on a PlayStation 2 or something. There's a lack of precision it's not insurmountable, but it's noticeable and it can be annoying. In games that don't require constant precision, you're not going to care. Space Marine 2 worked great. Borderlands 4 surprisingly well. Indiana Jones looked incredible. Everything worked just fine. Twitchier games felt a little sluggish in comparison, and I do love me some twitchy games. Anytime I have the opportunity to bring up the finals, I will. This service is supposed to have the finals, and I can find it in the listings, but it absolutely will not sync with my Steam library, and it's a free-to-play game that I shouldn't have issues playing. That is one issue that I have to mention because the finals is something I am going to endlessly play. There's going to be stuff like that, though. I think maybe it's something that you can only play in Ultimate or something, which I did originally start with a $10 account, the performance one, and then I upgraded to the $20 per month one, and maybe my account just isn't properly syncing. I don't know. I've got the $20 account for this review, and it does work much better. Like, in all seriousness, do not bother with the free version. It's so bad. I mean, you're going to watch a bunch of ads while you're in a queue to play a game badly. It works, sure, but do you want it to is the question. I would argue no, because when you do get into a game on the free account, you're stuck playing them on the most potato-y of the potato servers. Like, look at Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This is a game that scales pretty well on most modern-ish hardware, so it's kind of wild they've got the game settings this low. Baldur's Gate 3 is even worse. It's a stuttery mess. Runs at sub 20 FPS. Speaking of unplayable, even though the Ultimate subscription is significantly better, all the versions of this service are missing a pretty sizable selection of games. See, how GeForce Now works is that publishers have to submit their games to the service, NVIDIA adds them, so if a game maker doesn't want their games on there, you're shit out of luck. So pretty huge games are nowhere to be found on this service. The Grand Theft Auto games aren't here, no Red Dead, no PlayStation games of any kind, probably because they have their own competing streaming offerings on PlayStation, no FromSoft games, no Elden Ring, no Konami games, the list goes on. At least Capcom recently added their games, and Microsoft continues to support the service, so most of their games are on here. But the holes in the catalog are notable, and it's kind of stupid because you have to buy the games for them to work on this service. So it's not really something where you're losing out on revenue. If somebody buys games, they're probably not going to buy your streaming service that locks you down to a certain, much more limited ecosystem, like a PlayStation ecosystem or a whatever. Remember, I'm just talking about games that can be streamed here. I can't stress this enough. You will have to buy the games to stream them. The only loophole is there are a select few Game Pass Ultimate games that are compatible with GeForce Now. So if you have that, some of those games will work on this service. Another downside is the time limit, and I don't mean the daily limit of 8 hours, which is kind of annoying, but at least understandable given the nature of streaming. I mean the 100-hour monthly limit. Seriously, you're playing $20 a month, and you can stream games for about 100 hours total. Maybe for some people, no big deal, but that gets kind of hard to justify when you're only actually using it a couple of hours a month. You're getting the most out of now if you're a heavy user, but then they turn around and limit the amount of gameplay you can do in a month, which is kind of absurd. They do let you buy additional game time on my, I think it's $3 for like 15 additional hours. So that's just one more annoying thing you have to worry about on top of all the other annoying things that can pop up with it. So I will say I find the service to be needlessly confusing and fiddly. Tons of little stress points make the process of playing games on the cloud a little more complicated than it needs to be. And when you're actually in the game and it's working properly, that's great. But sometimes you're struggling to get a game to start, or you're dealing with a poorly designed app that inexplicably opens up halfway down the front page instead of into your game library whenever you quit out of a game. The time limits and general limitations on what games can be played can be exasperating, and the performance of some games is still less than ideal, even with just about the perfect setup possible for streaming. So while the whole thing works a whole lot better than it used to in general, it's just not quite 100% there. For a specific type of user, that's perfectly okay. GeForce Now gives them exactly what they want, and they're willing to work past the issues. Great. Like, for those types of people, that's awesome. You'll probably get a use out of GeForce Now, especially if you don't mind another $20 a month on top of the other pile of crap subscriptions that we all have at this point. The games look surprisingly great. They run very well for the most part. There is real value here. It's just that I think it's a very narrow band of people that are actually going to be able to get the most out of that value. And if NVIDIA continues to increase the price of the service, whatever savings that might have been offered, they're only going to get narrower. there. The technology is impressive, without a doubt. The fact they can stream games from a server in Virginia and play them on a local PC and it's only barely noticeable, that's great. It's impressive, but the more expensive it gets and the more limits NVIDIA puts on use time, the more unnecessary it feels. That's what I gotta say, though. What do you think? Leave us a comment. Let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. I'm Falcon, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.
Come on, connect. Love the suit, by the way.